Welcome to Creepy Corner Stories. Tonight, we're pulling back the veil on something most of us have experienced, but few truly understand. You wake up, but you can't move. Your body is frozen. Your eyes scan the dark room, heart pounding. And then, you see it. A shadowy figure. Watching. Waiting. Sitting on your chest. Whispering things that don't belong in this world. Was it just a dream? Or, something far more sinister? Tonight, we explore the terrifying phenomenon known as sleep paralysis, a state between waking and dreaming, where nightmares bleed into reality. We'll dive into ancient beliefs, medical science, and the haunting stories of people who faced their darkest fears, while completely awake. So turn off the lights, get comfortable, and whatever you do, don't fall asleep just yet. Let's begin. It started the night Aaron moved into his new apartment. It was nothing special, small, quiet, cheap. A little too cheap, actually. But he was in no position to be picky. The landlord had been eager to hand him the keys, barely explaining anything beyond, "Don't mess with the attic." There was no attic. Not that he could see. The first night was uneventful. But on the second, around 3:12 a.m., he woke up gasping. He couldn't move. Not even a twitch. His eyes darted around the room, wide with panic. His chest was tight, as though something immense was pressing down on it. The silence was unnatural, like sound had been vacuumed out of the world. That's when he saw it. A figure. Tall. Thin. Bent at an impossible angle near the foot of his bed. Its face was blank. A void where features should be. But its eyes. God, the eyes. Glowing like embers under a black veil. Aaron tried to scream, but his mouth wouldn't open. The thing crept closer, bone-thin limbs clicking with every movement. It leaned in so close he could feel it radiating cold. And then, without a word, it whispered directly into his thoughts. "You let me in." When he finally snapped out of it, he sprang from bed, drenched in sweat. The room was empty. He told himself it was just sleep paralysis, a glitch in the brain. Harmless. But the next night, it returned. And this time, it touched him. Its hand, cold and jagged like rusted metal, reached inside his chest, not physically, but something deeper. He felt it pull. Like it was peeling away a part of him, one layer at a time. Every night after that, Aaron slipped deeper into the paralysis. The creature no longer waited, it greeted him. And each time, he woke up less. Less energetic. Less himself. His friends stopped hearing from him. His job let him go. Mirrors began to frighten him, because sometimes, he thought he saw it standing just behind him. And then one night, he didn't wake up at all. Not truly. His body still moved. He went about his day. But something else was driving him. Watching from behind his own eyes. Living through him. Now the whispers never stop. And every once in a while, when someone visits the building, they'll notice something strange about the man in apartment 3B. He never blinks. He always knows your name. And if you listen closely when he smiles, you might hear the thing inside him whispering your name next. Talia had always been a vivid dreamer. But lately, it had turned darker. It started with whispers in her sleep. Nothing clear, just murmurs. Like voices trying to speak through water. She'd wake up drenched in sweat, heart pounding, with vague images of peeling faces and hollow eyes burned into her mind. She chalked it up to stress. Until the night she didn't wake up. Her eyes opened, but her body didn't follow. She was trapped, paralyzed in bed. Her fingers, her toes, her mouth, none of them would obey. Only her eyes, flicking helplessly in the dark. That's when she heard it. Not the whispers this time. Breathing. Close. Heavy. Wet. From the corner of the room, something began to crawl. She could hear its limbs dragging across the floorboards. Slow. Deliberate. The sound of nails clicking against wood. She strained her eyes, trying to see. Then it came into view. It looked wrong. A faceless thing, made of stretched skin and exposed muscle, as if it had peeled itself out of someone else's body and forgotten to die. It twitched as it moved, head jerking in unnatural bursts. It crept up the side of her bed. Sat on her chest. And then, slowly, it began pulling her face off. She couldn't scream. Couldn't move. All she felt was the pressure, the cold, the stretch of her skin, like it was loosening reality itself. The thing leaned close and whispered in a voice that wasn't a voice at all. "You don't need this anymore. I'll wear you better." Then it vanished. She woke up screaming. But something was wrong. Her face felt numb. She ran to the mirror, and stared. It was her face, but not quite. The smile felt too wide. The eyes weren't hers. And somewhere, behind the reflection, something blinked. They say sleep paralysis is just your brain misfiring. A dream glitch. A trick of light in the dark. But if that's true, why does Talia now sleep with the lights on, mirrors covered, and a knife under her pillow? And why, every night since, does she hear it breathing beneath her bed? Waiting for another face to wear. They say in the old villages of Eastern Europe, there's a legend. A woman in white, holding a lantern, who comes to you when you're most vulnerable, when you're not awake, but not quite asleep. When your soul is closest to slipping. They call her the Lantern Woman. Eli didn't believe in stories like that. He was a rational man. Logical. He didn't even believe in dreams, said they were just static in the brain. Background noise. That was before the night he saw her. It began like any other. Late night, a dull ache behind his eyes from too many hours staring at screens. He collapsed into bed, let the darkness take him. And then he opened his eyes. At least, he thought he did. His room looked the same. Same cracked ceiling. Same hum from the old fridge in the kitchen. But something felt off. Time wasn't moving. There was no air. No weight. Just stillness. And then, in the hallway just outside his room, came the flicker of a light. A dim, yellow glow. Swinging back and forth. Closer. Closer. Eli tried to move. To call out. But he couldn't. His limbs were cement. His mouth sealed shut. The door creaked open. She stepped in. Tall, thin, draped in a long white dress that floated like smoke. Her face was hidden under a tangle of black hair. And in her hand, an old lantern, its flame dancing like it was alive. She didn't walk. She glided. She stood beside his bed, tilted her head slowly, and lifted the lantern to his face. And then she breathed in. Not air. Not scent. But something deeper. Something inside him. And Eli felt it. Like threads being pulled from his chest. Like memories unraveling. He saw flashes, his mother's voice, his first kiss, his favorite book, and then, they were gone. She was taking pieces of him. When he woke up, he was on the floor. Cold. Shaking. But alone. Mostly. Because the next night, she came again. And again. And again. Each visit, she took more. A memory. A skill. A feeling. Until Eli was just a husk, walking through his days with no purpose, no past. Just emptiness. Doctors called it dissociation. Depression. Trauma. But Eli knew better. He saw the lantern glow in reflections. He felt her standing behind him in elevators. He could even hear the soft swing of her lantern in dead silence. And now, every night as he lies in bed, unable to move, he waits for her. And wonders how much of him is left to take. Sleep paralysis isn't always just a malfunction of the mind. Sometimes, it's a door. And sometimes, something's already waiting on the other side. With a light in her hand. And a hunger that never fades. It started after Marcus moved back into his childhood home. The place had always felt off, corners that were colder than others, lights that flickered only when he was alone, and that one strange spot in the hallway where the dog refused to walk. But Marcus was practical. It's just an old house, he told himself. Creaks, groans, drafts, nothing more. Until the night he woke up, and couldn't move. It was a heavy kind of stillness. Like being buried under invisible rubble. His arms, legs, even his tongue, all locked in place. The only thing that still worked were his eyes, and they immediately darted upward. To the ceiling. To the thing watching him. At first it looked like a crack in the plaster, long and jagged. But then it blinked. And another slit opened. Then another. Until the ceiling above his bed was covered in eyes. Dozens of them. All watching. All blinking in sync. Then came the voice. Not through the ears. Through the bones. You see me now. A shape began to descend, dripping down from the ceiling like oil. Long limbs, crooked fingers that ended in black, rotted claws. Its face wasn't a face at all. Just stretched flesh over bone, stitched in the wrong places, as if someone had built it in the dark. It hovered just inches from his face. Marcus's heart was racing. He was screaming inside his mind. Begging. Praying. The thing grinned. You were mine long ago. I've just been waiting for you to notice. And then, slowly, it began to lower itself. Into his mouth. Not physically, spiritually. It crawled inside his body. Filled him up like smoke seeping into empty lungs. When Marcus finally broke free of the paralysis, he bolted upright, gasping for air like he'd nearly drowned. The ceiling was normal again. But he wasn't. Now, every time he blinks, he sees things that aren't there. He hears voices in mirrors. Shadows move when he's standing still. His reflection grins when he doesn't. And sometimes, when he lies in bed, he feels the ceiling watching. And the voice returns. Let me back in. Nobody talks about Room 0 at the West Pine Sleep Clinic. Not the staff. Not the patients. Not even the building blueprints show it exists. But Mia was assigned to Room 0 by accident. That's what they told her, at least. She was there for a sleep study, chronic insomnia, vivid nightmares, night terrors. Nothing unusual on paper. But the moment she stepped inside that room, something shifted. It wasn't the flickering fluorescent light. Or the cracked tiles. It was the feeling. Like the room had been waiting for her. The technician hooked her up to monitors and electrodes, told her to relax, and left. The door shut. The lights dimmed. And Mia closed her eyes. She opened them to silence. Not sleep. Not fully. Somewhere between. Her body wouldn't move. And then, a noise. A soft, dragging shuffle. Like bare feet across tile. Coming from behind her. From inside the room. Her mind screamed, someone's here. But her body didn't respond. A figure moved into view. Not walking, crawling. Jerkily. Like every joint was dislocated. It was tall. Thin. Covered in old hospital sheets, stained with something dark. A mask, white porcelain, covered its face. No eye holes. No mouth. But it turned, and looked directly at her. Then, it leaned in. "You've slept here before," it whispered. Mia's heart raced. Her breathing grew frantic. And then, it climbed on top of her. Its cold hands pressed against her chest. And with an unnatural bend of its neck, it leaned in and whispered again. "You died here, Mia. Over. And over. And over again." Suddenly, she was falling. Out of the bed. Into blackness. Screaming internally as her body stayed behind, rigid. Eyes wide. She woke up screaming. The technicians rushed in. No one said anything about what happened. They wouldn't say. When she asked about the room later, they just stared at her. There is no room 0. But the footage from the sleep study? It was wiped. Except for 1 second of static. And in the middle of that static, just before the screen cut to black, was a white porcelain mask. Smiling. Nathan had been struggling with a strange kind of sleep paralysis, one that didn't feel like a glitch or a dream. It felt orchestrated. Like someone was watching him during it. Measuring. Waiting. Eventually, he found a forum. Obscure. Buried deep in the dark web. It was called, the Stillness Test. The rules were simple. Lie completely still in a dark room. Do not move, no matter what. If you succeed, they will reveal themselves. Do not fail. Nathan thought it was a joke. A creepypasta challenge. He had nothing to lose. So he tried it. The first few minutes were easy. Just darkness. Breathing. Then came the ticking. No clock in the room. But something was ticking. Slowly. Deliberately. Tick. 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 Then silence. Then, the dragging. Like wet limbs being pulled across the floor. Closer. Closer. Right up to the edge of his bed. He didn't move. The thing whispered, "You're doing well." His eyes burned, begging to shut. But he kept them open. That's when it climbed onto the bed. Slowly. Knees cracking. Fingers tapping on his ribs. He didn't move. It leaned into his ear and breathed words he didn't understand. A language that vibrated through his bones. Words that made his nose bleed. He didn't move. Then silence again. Suddenly, the room changed. The ceiling was gone. The walls too. Just black space. No stars. No light. Just presence. He wasn't in his room anymore. He was on a table. Strapped down. And they were there. Tall. Thin. Featureless. Dozens of them. Surrounding him. Observing. Writing. Measuring. One leaned down. Its head was a smooth orb with a vertical slit. Not eyes, just a line that opened slightly and whispered. "You passed." He woke up in his bed. Gasping. Drenched in sweat. Nose still bleeding. But things were off. No reflection in the mirror. No sound from his own footsteps. His shadow moved slightly out of sync. And sometimes, just before he falls asleep, he hears that ticking again. They're still watching. Callie had never believed in dream demons. Not really. She thought her sleep paralysis was just stress from her night shifts at the hospital. Until one night, she blinked awake, frozen in her bed, and saw herself standing in the corner. Not a shadow. Not a dream. Herself. Same hair. Same pajamas. Same scar on her collarbone. But the eyes were all wrong, empty, glassy, too wide. It didn't blink. It didn't breathe. It just watched. And then, it grinned. It whispered, "I like this one." Then it stepped backward into the wall and vanished. She thought it was just a nightmare. But the next day, her coworkers said she seemed off. Her boyfriend said she talked in her sleep, but it wasn't her voice. Over the next few nights, things got worse. The sleep paralysis came faster. Stronger. And now every time she was trapped, there was more than just the other her. Figures stood in the hallway, frozen. Watching. Sometimes whispering. Sometimes echoing her thoughts before she could even think them. "I'm afraid. I can't move. It's still inside me." Each time she woke up, something felt taken. Her laugh. Her taste for music. The warmth behind her smile. Gone. She tried sleeping in other houses. Motels. Even her car. Didn't matter. It followed. One night, she stayed awake for 72 hours. But when she finally passed out on the couch, only for a few minutes, she fell straight into it. No build-up. No warning. Just blackness. Then she was lying in a place that looked like her room, but wasn't. Too clean. Too still. The walls were sweating. She looked around, and saw them all. Echoes. Other versions of herself. Lined up. Hanging. Eyes hollow. Mouths open in silent screams. And the first one, the double, stood in the center. "You're the last," it said. "And when you're gone, I'll be all that's left of you." Callie screamed. She finally moved. But it was too late. She hasn't spoken since. Doctors call it catatonic withdrawal. But her sister swears sometimes, when Callie's eyes flutter in sleep, she smiles with someone else's mouth. And sometimes, she whispers things in her sleep, in her own voice. Except her lips don't move. The eater of echoes isn't just a dream parasite. It's a replacement. And once it finishes copying, you disappear. Elias was never a believer. But when the old woman from apartment 3C died, and he found the strange markings etched into her walls, circles within circles, symbols carved behind the mirrors, he got curious. He shouldn't have been. He found her journal, half-burned. Pages filled with prayers to something called the Watcher in the Door. It spoke of a ritual. A calling. A sleep pattern that opened the mind like a window. If performed for 13 nights in a row, the Watcher would come and grant understanding of what lies beyond sleep. Elias laughed. And then he tried it. Just to see. Night 1 to 5. Nothing. Just dreams. Vague shadows. Faint whispers. Static. Night 6. Sleep paralysis. Something stood in the doorway. Tall. No face. Long arms that reached the floor. Didn't move. Didn't blink. Night 7 to 9. It got closer each night. First in the corner. Then at the foot of the bed. Then leaning over him, its breath cold as ice. Night 10. He woke up screaming. Blood on his pillow. Not from his nose. From his ears. The whispers had grown louder. They weren't in any language he knew, but he understood them. 13 nights, and you will see. But on the 13th, we open the skin. Night 11. He tried to stop. Broke the pattern. Slept during the day instead. Didn't matter. He fell asleep anyway, at 3:13 a.m., and woke up frozen. The thing was inside his room now. Clawing at his sheets. Bending backward in jerks like a spider learning to dance. It whispered. You agreed. Night 12. He didn't sleep. But something else did. He watched his reflection blink while he didn't. He turned off all the lights. Hid in the bathroom. But when he looked in the mirror, there were 3 of him. And only one was afraid. Night 13. Elias never woke up. When police entered his apartment, they found the bed perfectly made. But the ceiling above it? Torn open. Like something crawled out of the room, not into it. And the walls were covered in circles. And in the center of the room, a hollow shell of skin. No bones. No organs. Just Elias's shape, like someone had worn him and stepped out. The last entry in the journal, written in his handwriting but in someone else's voice. 13 nights. 1 door. I opened it. Now I watch. If you see 3:13 on the clock, and feel the urge to sleep, don't. He's watching from the other side now. And he's waiting to teach you what lies beneath the dream. And there you have it, folks, another chilling tale from the depths of creepy corner stories. But remember, the darkness never really leaves, does it? If you've enjoyed tonight's story, don't forget to hit that like button, share the terror with your friends, and subscribe for more spine-tingling tales that will haunt your nights. And as always, keep your eyes open, your lights on, and your doors locked. Because next time, you might not just be listening to the story. You might be living it. Until then, sleep tight, and remember, the nightmares never truly end.